G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. With our AFL Fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars, we only talk about the less knowns and the players who are going to bring value to your draft and Keeper League team. And speaking of bringing value to this podcast, Jake from Hat Chat, how you going, mate?
Oh, mate, I love that. It's much better intro than I get when DC records for us. It's been great. It's not been the best weekend of fantasy footy for me, albeit the keepers and the drafts have had a good week. And I think we tend to balance this out whenever I come on. I have a terrible classic week, which is usually my focus.
Something like that.
Cracking draft one, so thanks
I reckon I've gone terrible classic, good super coach, bad home league, good dynasty league, and won my first Shiva game of the weekend. Okay. So a real mixed bag, you know. So
there's some wins. That's all that matters. It's some good.
I haven't been listening to the Shiva Blast this season, but apparently I've been copying shit in this because I was 0-3, and you can see everyone's teams now on the keeper homepage and stuff. So, but yeah, I think I beat a pretty reasonable opponent on the weekend. Hey. I am playing with about 3 or 4 injuries, and I got Bont to come back and all that sort of stuff. So
got to start somewhere.
Hopefully it starts to turn around. But yeah, how your Keeper League teams going? All good? Or?
Really good. Yeah, I'm in a Canberra Keeper League, which obviously I don't live in Canberra, but it was a bit of a ring in last year. Mates? DC, Mini Monk, a few decent coaches in that league. I'm 4-0 after losing Errol Goulden as kind of the best keeper in my side.
Yeah,
so big shout out to Zach Guthrie. He's certainly been a nice little one for the team there. But that's been good. Home keeper 2-2, still a bit of a rebuild with the Hat Chat boys. Yeah. So that one's going okay. And then I'm in a different league as well with the likes of Jep, Selby, Matt Mottram, and I'm 4-0 in that league. So I'm smashing some pretty seasoned coaches, which I'm pretty happy
about. Come across this podcast full time. It seems more your forte at the moment. But anyway, I had a pretty big weekend. I went to Melbourne on Wednesday, made it a bit of a business trip, recorded a podcast with Checkers, went to the footy Thursday night, which is now tax deductible for me, which is great. And then, a few other bits and pieces, caught up with the mates. So I've had a pretty big weekend. Then I went and ran 32 Ks yesterday. So, and I've said this on the podcast before, that running that kind of distance, I reckon, is worse than a hangover, because you're like dehydrated, you're like physically depleted, you're mentally depleted, but your whole body hurts as well. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now. So just excuse me if my brain's elsewhere or whatever this weekend. I'm
a bit of a 12K kind of guy that taps me out. So 32, not in my wildest dreams.
It's not fair. I'm doing a marathon, so you got to figure you have to kind of do some long runs in there to actually get there. And once I do this marathon, I'm just never going to do any sort of distance like that ever again.
They say you get hooked. No. You get hooked.
When you get about 30, or when you're about 30 Ks in and your knee just starts like cramping up and giving way, and you feel like you can't even move anymore, I don't think it's the most funnest feeling in the world. That's where I'm at. So I've got to somehow find an extra 10 Ks in the next 4 weeks in that run. But I reckon I'll get there.
Is it the Adelaide Mara Festival one?
Yeah, Adelaide, nice. May 4th in Adelaide. So see how we go there. So I've got a few more weeks to get there. But hopefully I'll be right. Anyways, we'll get stuck into the show. This week we'll just be recapping all the rounds, finding the Keeper League relevant players, anyone that's worth trading for, worth picking up off waivers or stashing for the future. That's basically what we're into. So we'll start with the Collingwood versus Carlton game. I actually went to this game, and you would have heard that there was some supporters that brought some absolute weapons into them. I should have left these biceps at home, Jake.
That's poor taste, but I can see you, as I'm sure some of the listeners can too, and I can't blame you. I
was just joking. No one should bring weapons to the football. But,
especially it's all here this weekend. We're obviously super excited
exactly.
by that.
No, please don't do that. Please don't. Not in our hometown.
Keep them in Melbourne.
But we had actually no idea that even happened until like the next morning. We were just at the game, like living life and watching it, and then there's just some dudes there with some weapons. So whatever. Please don't do that ever again. Anyone who ever goes to the football. But good game. It was wet. I looked at the forecast in Melbourne. No rain on the radar. Zanks, my mate, told me to bring a jacket. Didn't listen to him. Should have. But luckily we're undercover. We actually had the highest seats in the entire MCG. Being a sellout, 2 biggest rivalry, it was pretty hard to get tickets. So got some, but we were in the back row of the top stand.
I think I've got vivid memories with the Hat Chat boys. The first time we all met in Melbourne. Mind you, this was middle of July. Planned to be 10 degrees, but I didn't bring a jumper. Yep. So I'm now the proud owner of one MCG jumper. I couldn't stick to it for the whole game.
Didn't want to buy a team, just wanted to buy the MCG official
I was
merch.
at a Hawthorn West Coast game and I wasn't buying any merch.
Gross. Yeah, no, that's disgusting. Never do that. Anyways, let's get stuck into it. Lockie Schultz, he's officially too good for the podcast, which I never thought would happen ever again. Well, he got there 2 years ago. in that last season at Freo, and hence why he was worth a first-round draft pick when he left. He was actually putting up some good scores, but he's put the 380-plus scores in a row. He's had 200s in a row, which is massive. Can he maintain this, though? That is the question. What do you think?
I don't know. It's one of these things that sometimes I get so locked into the historical output that I almost overlook the longevity of this.
Yeah.
I don't know that the role has been a significant shift. It's not like we're suddenly seeing some of these highly sought-after stats that suggest this scoring.
Yeah.
But when you put it together for 3 weeks in a row, it suggests that there's some part of the game plan that this seems to facilitate, and maybe it is. I still think that he's going to regress for the remainder of the year, but if he's sitting on waivers anywhere, he absolutely is plenty good enough for a top forward spot.
Yeah, you got to reward the form if they're on the waiver wire, but I'm with you. I don't think the role ever equates to these guys being consistent. Someone the other week was asking me about Marcus Windhager because he had 100. It's like, is it Marcus Windhager's season? I'm like, well, just look at every tagger in the competition and see how they go. If you see a trend of those guys averaging big each week, then sure, jump on it. But if you don't, then maybe not. And I think this is the same for small forwards.
Agreed.
Harry Perryman, the other one, 95 points back in the CBA mix this week. I think Tagoe did get subbed out. Can we trust it?
Oh, I think they've shown that he is Mr. Fix-It. That is the reality. Reece McInnes goes down, suddenly at a 2% midfield game. Yeah. He clearly is capable in multiple roles. I'm not sure that we're going to talk about him today because he's regressing, but Joel Frazier, someone I was super hot on in the preseason, has shown exactly what a Mr. Fix-It can do. Yeah. We know when Perryman's in the role, he looks excellent. We saw it in the opening round. We've now seen it after the majority of the competitions traded him out in Classic. He's still very much good enough, but I don't know that you can expect what you're going to get next week, the week prior, unfortunately, based on the role.
No, I'm with you. It's just need everything to go to plan. No one gets injured, no shuffling around, that sort of stuff. And then maybe Perryman has some good games there. Worth owning in every draft and keeper league, though. It's just not I think the classic world writes him off a bit more than probably we have. They'll never talk about him again after the last couple of weeks.
Except all the owners that apparently decided last minute to keep him.
Like all 2% of them. Whatever. Sam Doherty moving on to Carlton at 111 points. Spent a lot of time in defence. Now, I went back and watched a little bit because we were drinking beers and talking shit. It's hard to actually watch footy. Went back and just watched a few CBAs and stuff like that. And he's on the wing quite a bit throughout the game, starting on the wing, sorry. But when we were watching the game, he's in defence again. He's in defence. So I think he was probably playing the wing that was kind of moving back. The reason why I just think this is interesting is last week when keeper, the position changes came out, Code Sports put out a thing where he was 56% in the forward half or something like that. And to me, that's just wing running forward, pushing forward and running off that wing. And the thing with the Code Sports ones that I think people don't realise, which I could be wrong on this, but I think it's just time spent on the ground when they're on the ground.
Right.
So in keeper, it kind of factors in bench as well as how much time you're spending on the bench. So if you're spending 20%, 25% bench on the bench, that's going to come down in your total time up forward as well, probably time in defence as well. Yeah. I just don't think those Code Sport things that people put out, those time percentage on ground or in possession of the ground for defence is too black and white. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's anytime they're forward of centre, they're forward, and every time they're forward of back. I think that's kind of what it is. Okay. So, and people saw that and go, why didn't he get forward status? But if you actually watch him, and you're at the game as well, and you see where he's running and all that sort of stuff, there's no way he's playing as a forward.
No, I think it's unreasonable. He's not starting in the forward line either. I know we talk about starting positions a lot in the classic side and the official app. Yeah. That'd be great, right?
Yeah, I love it.
I guess he's that guy. He's going to be owned. No one's got him sitting on the waivers. I would just have to assume. Yeah. Can he keep up that performance? Again, super role dependent, but it'd be great if you could sneak some DPP either way. But I would agree, it almost is too balanced across to have that heightened level to get the DPP, I'd always say.
Well, this week, in terms of just the flow of play, he did look more defence, but he's still starting on that wing, definitely. But then Cowan was out, so out early of the game, so he might have pushed back and see how, I don't know. But keep just monitoring it, but I'm not sure. I'm not certain he's getting DPP at the next position change, that's all.
Yep.
Ollie Holland's finally had a good game at 87. Kicked 2 goals, so pushed further up the ground. Maybe, Doc pushing back did push him up more and let him attack. But
maybe Doc being back there just meant that Adam Saad had someone to give him the ball instead of Adam Saad overlooking him for the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, because Saad was good as well. So that's another one there that scored pretty well. Then Cooper Lord was the other one I just noticed was back in the CBA mix and put up 74 points.
Time on ground has been average, obviously subbed out the first round, but his points per minute is great, and I've got a few Carlton supporter friends who are pretty hot on the guy.
Well, they looked good at the end of last year as well when everyone was injured and he was kind of one of the key midfielders.
My biggest concern as far as keeper goes is Jagger Smith back next year. Does Cooper Lord just get shuffled down the pecking order and lose his best 22? But he's got a whole year to make it. That's the way I look at it.
And the other one is probably George Hewitt's probably seen the bump on the back of Jagger as well. So being out, which we probably didn't expect. So we'll have to wait that one. I'll be trading high on Hewitt though if I owned him.
I actually used my last keeper spot for him in the home league. Yeah. I just expected an uptick. I'm not going to pretend I was expecting a 111.5 by the end of round 4, but that's a challenging one. I'm keen. We might chat maybe more offline on the trade high piece, but I just think for this season, depending where your team's positioned, you've got a lot of scope there.
Now, I will say, so I watched this game live at the G. Now, for a lot of the other games, I was either flying back to Adelaide, so I missed a bit of footy. My son had a soccer carnival yesterday, so it was there all day, so I didn't see a lot of footy yesterday. I was planning to watch the game at the pub with some mates on Friday night, Geelong versus Melbourne. I was, driving to the pub, got there, ordered some beers. I saw the footy was at Fox Footy on the big screen ahead of us. I thought we were settling in for the night. And then I suddenly got told we're going to Williamstown versus Frankston VFL
blockbuster
game. Yeah, just where I wanted to be, And I think this really confirmed for me that I don't like football. I hate football. I love fantasy, but I don't like watching football. So, I don't know. There needs to be fantasy points for me to be interested in it because I don't punt, and those guys are punters. Like mates are punters. They'll put bets on these games, that sort of stuff. Whereas, I don't punt, so fantasy is my thing that I need for interest in footy. I think. And so, it just confirmed to me that I like fantasy and not football. Yeah. And when there's no fantasy scores being kicked, I don't care watching the Seagulls versus the Dolphins on a Friday night in a picturesque venue. I just would rather be at the pub watching Geelong versus Melbourne.
I feel like the state leagues are just this awkward spot of local league. You probably know some of the guys and you've got this level of intimacy with the game, if you will.
Yeah.
When you're playing at the AFL level, obviously you've got your own team's allegiances plus the fantasy side.
Yeah.
And the state league has none of it. The state league loses all of that allure.
Yeah, correct. Well, to kind of preface this, I was with an ex-VFL coach and his brothers. So it was they had a real interest in the VFL. And I think they were they thought they might have been doing me a favour, showing me something cool, something different that I'll never do. But really, I just wanted to be at the pub watching things. But we only lasted till halftime anyway because it was way too cold.
I was going to say a cold Melbourne night on the water.
I wore shorts because I thought we were just going to be at the pub all night. And then I was freezing. So anyway, Williamstown versus Frankston. I don't even know who won in the end.
Anything for the podcast from that game?
No, I bought a Williamstown Seagulls football for my son, which is pretty funny and cool because he just has no idea what it is, but I thought it'd be random and good. So hopefully he keeps it and looks back at it and goes, "What the hell is this, Dad?" Anyway, let's tick off some too good for the podcast players from the Geelong side of things. I think we have to tick off Zach Guthrie, 149 points. I think he's had 3 massive scores now in a row. Same deal. They do this thing where they do their same game multis and on disposals, and they sit down, they write down how many. These are my mates. How many possessions they're going to get on a game. And I tipped Zach Guthrie for 24, and they laughed at me. I was like,
did they?
What do you mean? He's going to rack him up across half-back.
I think he fell a few above that.
Yeah, well, because I think the line was a lot lower. Yeah. I think it was 21 or something like that. So they thought I really liked him. So that was fine. And Lawson Humphries, I think he's too good for the podcast too with his 115. Absolutely. He went for pick 4 in our draft, and it was an absolute steal looking back. So anyway, 4 in the top up,
Not
the thing.
Yeah. For a moment, you had me there.
Went before Jagger, I reckon. So which is probably fair.
I think so.
Yeah. All right, Conor O'Sullivan, 96 points, took a shitload of marks in defence, bit of chip around, some intercept. He's kind of gone low, which was a sub game, I think, then high, then low, then high. Is this someone you can see maintaining long term, or is he played too tall to be a huge scorer?
Yeah, I don't see him having the ceiling games that we see from a Guthrie Humphries. I don't think you can expect that. But you know what? He looks excellent. And I think that back line is getting relatively solid. I mean, if you ignore the injuries, a Jack Henry injury, certainly looking sore. SDK, what's going to happen there? There's just a lot of question marks. But in current form, he's holding his spot. In current form, he's good enough. If he keeps it up, I think there's nothing wrong with stashing him and just moving him on if he happens to disappear a little bit.
I've heard that he's the next Tom Stewart, moving straight into that role as soon as he retires.
Big call.
Yeah, that is a big call.
Absolutely.
But, one to watch. Patrick Dangerfield, 94 points, 3 goals. Apparently we'll move back into the midfield, according to Chris Scott. They said they were going to play him forward for the first 5 weeks to get fitness and whatever, and then go back in the midfield.
Have we believed anything Chris Scott said this year?
Absolutely not. But the point is he's going to get forward status in a few weeks. And if he's scoring 94 points like he did this week, you're going to be taking that.
Oh, so, 100%.
Yeah.
I think absolutely crazy, especially in your forward line. There's a famous line because I drafted Patrick Dangerfield one pick before Josh Dunkley in my home league draft 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Of course, Dunkley's Donuts, my name. I copped it a fair bit. I said it's because I expected Paddy Dangerfield to have forward status for the next 4 years, of which that has not come to fruition. So
didn't Dunkley have forward status recently?
Yes, and that's part of the challenge. But vindication in 2025 is what I'm looking at from Paddy D.
I picked him up in a lot of leagues expecting forward status, so he better fucking get it this week. But anyway, he was going to get it. I'm certain of it. Sean Manor returned, 88 points, 1 goal, 14 kicks, 4 handballs, 4 marks, 5 tackles. That's a pretty handy stat line. I don't really have much to say about it. It's just a good return in a comeback game.
Yeah, I think I went round 2 in a keeper redraft, top up. Same thing. It just feels like he's the kind of guy who score, mature ager, looks great, forward status.
I went first round in a dynasty on him, but I had 2 picks in the first round, one at the start, one at the end, and I picked him at the end of the first. He was the best forward available in the pool, I think, and he's shown it now.
Great.
And all right, let's talk about the Sam Koenig-Stanley situation. Blitzard was out. So if Blitzard is fit this weekend, I think he had gastro. I think that was the call. What happens? So does DeKoning stay in the number 1 ruck? Does does Stanley stay in because he had a pretty reasonable game? What do you think?
I'm not going to even pretend to give an answer here. It's Chris Scott. He said Stanley's not going to be playing this week. Obviously, they're not predicting a Blitzard's gastro. I just can't believe anything. I think you just wait to teams. Don't make any rash decisions. Wait for teams. I know on keeper, Blitzard has been nice with his mid-defence ruck status. That's nice. The TPP.
Yes.
But the
DeKoning situation is a bit scary because he scored well in this week and he still was doing a bit of ruck time, but there's a lot of Melbourne factor about this score. Against tougher opponents like Adelaide this weekend when they're going to have 3 key forwards running around. I think he might have to play a lot tighter on some of those.
100%. I'm scared about the need to hold this week, and with the nod news and a couple of other things in the classic space. I wouldn't be stoked to be an SDK owner this week. I reckon twice he got +6s coming off the bench. He's coming into
I did see
so
the second half,
little bits and pieces of that. It looks like a great score, but I wouldn't expect anything like that this week.
We'll tick off Jack Bowes for 2 good for the podcast as well, actually. He'll get defender status to 82 points there. Tip the hat to Tom McDonald with his 80 points. I'm not going anywhere near that. Cozzy Pickett, though, 87 points. Well, we've been talking about midfield time for years now, but it seems more prominent now.
It's sporadic still. It's for the challenge. I think we saw it for a couple of games last year. A bit of famous bringing in Pickett at the start of the season, and then it just disappeared.
But it used to be a lot of centre bounce and then go back forward. Whereas I didn't watch the full game, truth be told, but he just looked like in the preseason and a bit of this game, it looked like he was just hanging around in the midfield a little bit more. And I'm thinking there's a bit of trade value. They're trying to pump him up a bit as well. Yeah,
I think that's fair. So, Petrarca's definitely spending a lot more time forward. They've lost the likes of Xavier Lindsay last week for a couple. I think they're just working things out because they're struggling, so they're testing a lot of things. Trade high with a couple of good scores, I'd say.
He was actually one of my returning players in the Shiva League that I had back this week, so that's probably why I won.
Absolutely.
For a change. Let's move on to the Gold Coast Suns versus the Adelaide Crows game. Now, the AFL's come out and said it was a mark at the end of the game, so we can't even debate that. It should have been a mark. Crows were robbed right in front of us. I think Gold Coast is not really a lot to talk about. All the guys who scored well were too good for the podcast. They're not going to be available in waiver wires or whatever. The only one that kind of impressed me was Jed Walter. He only scored 68 points, but looked like he's kind of in his second season. He's doing very well for a key forward, I think. A game like this looked okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
I saw signs for the future.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend he's a Josh Tracy kind of yet. Yeah. But there's just these little bits there that I can see in 2027. Suddenly we're talking about him a lot.
Correct. On to the Crows, though. What are your thoughts on James Peatling? He had 112 points, but Crouch was out. Only had the 9 CBAs, which I felt like less because he seemed like he was everywhere. Do you think he can do that again, or do you think Crouch comes in and it kind of affects him again, or who knows?
I think I messaged.
You got a crystal ball there? What are you looking at that?
I messaged in the group chat at half time. I said, clearly Matt Crouch is the problem. So it was a really clear correlation. If you look at their game style, and they're just too similar.
Well, in my brain pre-season, I was like, Matt Crouch isn't best 22 anymore. That was my thinking.
The community probably thought that. Yeah. And not just the fantasy community, but the footy community.
Yeah. And then he's come back and just ruined everything. So I don't know. I think that's the key. Hopefully they decide that they don't need Crouch and they just run with Peatling because owners would be pretty happy. Did he get forward in keeper?
I
think he may have.
That's a great question.
I think he may have. Or might have just been short. But yeah.
I think the one thing for me is you're not going to trade low on him.
Nah.
He's not going to be any lower than he is right now.
Yeah.
And at some point, Crouch is going to be moved out of that.
Yeah.
And Peatling seems like the logical logical man for the job. They've brought him in for a reason. We know he's an excellent fantasy scorer in the right role. So you just got to hold tight and wait for the second coming.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, so Isaac Cumming.
I built the segue right there. you just left me hang there.
I wish I read the run sheet before. Second coming. Isaac Cumming, I get it. 97 points. Good score, but I just don't like the role to rely on him.
Disappointing.
Taylor Walker had 85 points. Is he too good for the podcast? He's had 3 80s in a row.
We know.
I think
every year we talk about bringing him in for a 2-game stretch or something along those lines. He still looks great. And I hate saying that. Some part of me feels icky with those words coming up, but I love watching Tex play.
I picked him up with my second to last pick in the keeper league, home league. He's playing on field for me every week at the moment.
He's the perfect guy. I love those picks late in drafts.
Yeah.
Because you just stream them on the weeks. You
Correct.
know that they have a good matchup. He's going to kick a few.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I hate when they get left just because they're a key forward. The stigma means that they just move.
He scores easily. Like he would just find a way to kick a goal here and there, and he's pretty reliable with a set shot. So he doesn't need too many opportunities.
The goal on the weekend where he wheeled out Till Thorpe in the goal square, and he just kicked it from 50.
That was an accident, but
it was an accident, but
still goes through. It's like the magnetised.
Shows Tex.
Definitely. Sid Drape had the full game as well, but only managed the 54 points. But good to see him get it. And we just keep monitoring him, and hopefully he can kind of click and turn to a fantasy scorer. He's kind of like Peeling as well, though. The midfield's performing too well for him to get in there full time, probably.
Exactly. Let him build his AFL standard, I'd say.
Correct. Let's move on to the Richmond versus Brisbane game now. After the gun show on Saturday night, that's awful. It was very hard for people to actually get into the ground this week, so I feel sorry for all the people lining up, trying to get into this game. But I think that's probably why the Richmond crowd was so small, because it took too long. Everyone's turned away. It's not that they've stopped rocking up or anything.
No,
but anyway,
no fair weather about it.
Yeah, exactly. But Sam Lawler had his best game so far with the 95 points, 2 goals. He's got that mid forward role. 10 CBA. He just looks like a jet, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he was pick 12 in the top up. I don't know how he got to me at pick 12.
Wow.
I was stoked.
Actually, he went late now, I reckon, too, like second round.
I think the injury happened probably a week before, plus everyone's concerned about the mid-forward role. I mean, he's going to get forward status. That was the way I looked at it. And at pick 12, it felt like a steal. Every week the Dustin Martin kind of factor is just there, isn't it? The forward line, the CBAs, the impact.
Yeah.
It's just so hard because Richmond really still look like they're going to struggle, albeit they put up a very respectable score against what is last year's premiers.
They are nowhere near as shit as I thought they'd be. Yeah, so it's good to set for Richmond. But no, I think, and especially in Supercoach, in Supercoach he's almost like my next guy I'm going to bring on the field and leave him there. So he's going to score pretty well, I think, in that format. With the Brisbane scores, there's a lot of Richmond factor with all of them. It's so hard to get a read on players. More looking at role, but Jasper Fletcher had 101 points. He's kind of we haven't really made enough of his move to halfback this kind of season.
Yeah.
He kind of still swaps between the wing a little bit throughout the year, but it looks like it's a role that's suited to him. Do you think he can maintain that, or do you think Coleman comes in and helps, takes that off of him?
Yeah, well, I mean, how many players this year have their injury timelines just been extended and extended? Because Coleman obviously is sitting closer to 18 months now on an ACL, which is never a good sign.
Yeah.
I think he's a logical, I don't know about replacement, because age-wise and impact, Jasper Fletcher looks great.
Yeah.
But I just think it's going to impact it. It can't not have an impact, I suppose.
Yeah.
The question is, how long is it going to be? And you ride the highs while you can. Still young enough that he's got plenty of years in him. So it'll just be interesting in terms of on-field versus kind of having him sit on your pine, depending how deep your league's back.
Yeah. Jasper Fletcher's super under-owned in leagues. I think he's under the 50% mark, so he's probably one to pick up on keeper. And then, Levi Ashcroft, he's just going well, 81 points. You can't really expect him to go bigger until he gets bulk inside time, and it's just not happening at the moment. But you're going to take those 81 points from a kid who's playing on a wing for a lot of it type thing. So
incredible stuff. Like I said, pretty basic. I'm always just looking out for the strapping. I don't know if anyone else, when you just see the hair and you just go, is it Will or is it Levi? And it's the shoulder strapping. That's the only way I can tell the difference.
All right, let's move on to the North Melbourne versus Sydney game. Probably only one player worth talking about from each team here, but Paul Curtis just keeps getting it done. 88 points. He's a small forward, but he gets up the ground. You'll see him a lot further up the ground, winning possessions up there. Do you think he can maintain, or are we talking small forwards again? Same factor.
I think
Crystal ball, get it out.
Look at it. Answer the same way I answered with Lockie Schultz. There's something that just feels gross and dirty and icky when I'm talking about it. But he just goes keep getting it done, and you've got to respect. You've got to respect the data that's in front of us.
Yeah.
And North are improving, albeit they didn't look at against the Swans this week. It was probably their most disappointing performance this season.
Yeah.
And there's just something that's changing. And I think having someone like that as a bit of a link man, which tends to be that last kick inside 50, I think he's more than serviceable. And I'd imagine his ownership is low enough to have him sitting on your side.
It's like you look at anyone's team and everyone's probably got one forward that they are fielding each week who's could go 60, could go 90 each week. And he's probably one of those guys. And we've all got to have them. So Paul Curtis might as well be one of those guys for your teams.
100%.
Like, I got Nick Watson at the moment. He either goes 11 round one, but then I'm not actually fielding him, but he's someone I could bring on. But then look, they're playing Port this week. I expect him to kick 3 and probably get up the ground more. Like,
if I'm comparing apples with apples, I'm putting Paul Curtis on my field before I'm putting Nick Watson.
100%. But like the last 2 weeks, Nick Watson has scored 80 plus. So that's the thing. So like you just gotta worry about those small forwards that they can go big. You stream them in the right situations, but probably another one for me is probably Sam Powell-Pepper. That's the one I usually roll with more often than Nick Watson. But he's someone he either goes 60 or goes around 80, 90 type thing. So
I think Paul Curtis, his marking ability just gives him that uptick compared to some of the other small forwards. He just that electricity and he finds his way to mark.
Yeah.
It just adds that extra 10 points that sometimes the other guys don't get.
Now, Riley Bice, or Roger Bikes, as my 6-year-old son calls him, 125 points. Now, there's a lot of people out there claiming that they were the ones who called him, who were on top of him. I just want to ask any one of those people if they've got a receipt earlier than the drafty analysis guide. So I reckon that was probably November sometime, because there's one there from me. So if you can beat that.
I've got a few group chats. I don't know that any were as early as November. There's been some absolute shout-outs. I've never seen a man's moustache submitted in a group chat or so many group chats over one evening. What a jet. That was incredible. I said it at the end of the Freo game. I said he was best on ground that last quarter when the Swans kind of got up.
Just kept popping into holes and finding all the footy.
And look at what's happened this week. He's just kept on keeping on.
Yeah. Well, I think my words were, like, exact words were, he'll be the next Jake Lloyd coming out of defence. So
still the moustache?
Well, just fantasy scoring. Old Jake Lloyd, not new wing Jake Lloyd.
Sure.
Old Jake Lloyd. So, so I was pretty high on him and pretty happy with him. Unreal game. Looks every bit the fantasy type. North Melbourne factor, though. Will he go big every week?
Oh, I don't. If anyone's going to call his next 125 averaging player in the AFL, I'd be surprised.
He's the next Jake Lloyd.
I think there's every chance that he could be a 70s, 80s guy in that role, which is plenty good enough to be fieldable.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, on to the first Sunday game, GWS Giants versus West Coast Eagles, which was an absolute training run. A lot of West Coast factor about these scores. We got, Richmond factor, North Melbourne factor, West Coast factor. We had a bit of Melbourne factor, I think, as well.
There's a lot of factors.
Friday. Yeah, there is. Half the team is, there's going to be some good scoring. Anyway, Darcy Jones, 123 points. I didn't see this. I was at the soccer carnival, but it sounded like a pretty unreal game. Was it 16 kicks, 8 handballs, 6 marks, 7 tackles, 2 goals? Again, that role, though.
Absolutely incredible stop.
He's one of those guys. He's one of those guys. Those Paul Curtis guys. Is he's going to be 60 or he's going to be 100?
I know, but the helmet factor, if we're talking about factors, he looked good. I only saw patches of this one, but you're right. I think the top 10 scorers were GWS players.
Yeah.
He was excellent. It just looked unaccountable. That's probably the biggest thing. The West Coast witches' hats, I think Deese on the podcast calls them at times.
Yep.
There was just no one keeping account and too much free reign to expect that.
Correct. Jesse Hogan had 117 points, just a lazy 9 goals from 12 possessions.
Just casually.
So that's what he will do when he plays teams like this. Connor Iden, 100 points. He's actually having quite a good season. I thought there might be an uptick with Perryman gone, but he does have to kind of float between defensive and attack. Like, he does quite a few things, but he can take marks in defence, which is what I like about him. They're not always intercepts, but they can intercept a little bit, but he does get involved in that kind of chip around. Laid 5 tackles back there as well. So he's a reasonable defender. I think I'm playing as my D5 at the moment, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Probably, if we talk about the key forwards, it's matchup dependent. When GWS love chipping the ball around, they're not going to do it every week.
Yeah.
You find the matchup where they do, you just bump him up your list.
And for West Coast, I mentioned this last week, just no one scores in that team. I don't think there was anyone over 100 this week. I think there was only one over 80 this week.
Yep.
And I think there's only 2 over 80 last week and 1 ton. But Ryan Marich, I guess, I did end up picking him up in both Classic and Supercoach this week, and I wasn't disappointed. I was happy with a 73 with a break even at 4. But in your keeper leagues, he's a forward it's the role. It's hard to score poorly in that role. Most weeks he should go 70 plus.
There's minimal floor.
Yeah.
Also minimal ceiling. He's just going to be a really safe bet for probably a 60 to an 80. I would just peg him for almost that, maybe 5 points either side.
And anyone who's picked him up in their keeper league drafts are going to have him in that F5 range, probably even bench range. Like that's what they picked him up for. And now you're getting a guy that should score 70 most weeks. You know, so you'll be pretty happy with that. But yeah, West Coast just.
I think at one point he was 4 kicks, all kick-ins. That's the thing.
That's what you want. And I saw one thing as well where he stepped outside and then came back in to make it look like he hadn't played on, but so he'd get the stat.
I saw that. There was something about his fantasy now that was being talked about in Twitter from memory, or X. Yeah. I don't think I'll ever call it X. I think it's always going to be Twitter. But there's just something about it that West Coast. I don't like that he has to rely on the behinds and the kick-in so much, but it is West Coast, so inherently they're going to be scored against, so they're going to have a lot of them.
Just maybe long-term he might not be a play, but for this season I think he's going to be okay.
Yep.
On to the Port Adelaide versus St Kilda game. Couldn't have cared less about this result for the first time. Well, I feel like the more I watch Port and whoever they're playing, I'm more interested in like the fantasy scoring. Like I'm actively happy that Jack McRae's getting a kick, things like that, so that's probably not a bad sign, probably not a good sign. But anyway, we'll talk about it. Miles Bergman had 113 points. I think he's the one who's going to see the biggest uptick by the season's end. We're going to see who's like made the most points out of Dan Houston leaving, or it's going to be him.
I think I got him as a steal in a number of drafts. I was pretty hot on Farrell too, but I just couldn't see a world that Bergman didn't also have an uptick. Yeah. I'm impressed by how much it's been. Yeah. Farrell struggled on the weekend. I think it was a mid-50s score from memory. Yeah. Pretty clearly Bergman at this stage. And
it's contract year for him as well, and he's probably going to get traded for a big deal, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you think so?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's pretty well known he wants to go back to Victoria. Okay. And he's going to be trying to get a big contract, I think. So he'll put up some decent scores.
Any guesses where you think he'll land? And then we can go the receipts all the way back to April when you call it?
No idea. No, I'm not good on that side of thing. That's a real football term, not fantasy terms. I'm not good with real football. But yeah, so like he's going great at the moment. 70 kicks, 9 handballs, 4 tackles. It's 9 marks, 4 tackles in that game. Miss Georgiades, 96 points, can take a mark and kick a goal. He's looked pretty dominant the last 2 weeks he's played. Even though he didn't score that well last week, he was just absolutely toweling up Mackay in that first quarter. But then again, they're both teams that don't have great key defensive options, so maybe that's not something to look into as much, but one to monitor.
Because we're struggling, honestly, sorry, Heff, but Port key forwards right now, probably not the team I'd be looking at.
Nah, probably not. You're right. Onto the Saints side of things then. Toby Travalia had only 48 points, but he looked good. But my worry pre-season was that he's just end up on a wing, eventually, and he played a lot on the wing in this game. So that's probably one to worry about. You want him at half back, but maybe when Nazai Wanganeen-Muller goes to Port next year, maybe that's the...
they go straight swap?
It could be Bergman. I reckon that could work. Yeah, let's do it. I'll take that. And then Callum Wilkie, 85 points. Pretty wayward kicking inside 50 by Port. Just took a lot of marks.
Perennially underrated, though.
Every year. Well, he's an All-Australian.
Again, fantasy
real
terms.
Real football.
What are we talking about here? Fantasy terms, he always drifts, and I always see him at some point, and he's got 3 or 4 points clear on average on any other defender that's still available, and still no one's picking him. So, I don't know, big shout out to Callum. I think that for some reason the community gives you a bit more shtick than you probably should. Yeah, to be honest.
Yeah, correct. He's picked up in quite a few, in quite a keeper league drafts, and people play him each week, and he's a really serviceable scorer, so he's fine. Just might not hit that All Australian year where he was averaging 80 plus. That's all.
Yep.
Yeah. Onto the Fremantle versus Western Bulldogs game. How'd you feel about the result here, mate?
Probably not surprised. I'll tell you what. I was the biggest guy 5 minutes ago in the game, listening to Triple M saying, "What's to go with this interchange cap?"
Yeah, I saw on the
storm in a teacup from the sounds of it, but the AFL need to sort their app out.
Yeah, it's just the app screwing up.
Yeah, well, Triple M's made the call. Brayshaw's on the bench. Fremantle are already over their interchange cap. They can't get him back on.
Yeah, and then he came back on.
And then they had another 4 interchanges.
Yeah.
So anyway, I kind of got excited that I thought we were in for a bit of a run there, knowing they'd be low on interchanges. They had 3 injuries late in the game.
Yeah.
But look, Freo over there, we're still undermanned. We started the year better than I probably expected. So
for someone who spends a lot of time kind of poking his nose around in the back end of champion data feeds and things like that, I can't say I'm surprised that was a fuck up there. Because you see a lot of weird things in there that, players using the wrong IDs and stats getting, split 2 ways into 2 different people. One of them doesn't exist, that sort of stuff. Like I've seen that in the past. It's probably not the tightest ship that they run, but, the AFL, multi-billion dollar corporation. I don't know if it's multi-billion, but probably $1 billion corporation. you'd think they'd run a tight ship, but what else?
And look, don't get me wrong, big ups to the champion data guys. There's times I'm watching and I'm like, I have no idea how you could award.
I tried to count stats
How do
myself.
you award that tackle? I do not know how you could split that.
Yeah. More so, the infrastructure behind things seems a bit dodgy sometimes, but whatever. Josh Tracy had 100 points, 3 goals. If Freo finds some form, I reckon he could get back to producing the numbers he was last season.
100%. So, I think he's a jet. I think he's the next best key forward in the comp, quite openly.
Just like so good with his contested marking, which means he gets more looks at goals than most key forwards do. So that's it. He should be a decent option.
Was it Tracy? I might be getting my wires crossed here, but like most accurate set shot in a significant period of time.
Wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know the actual stat. But
I'll have to look that one up. Someone correct me, but BT was talking about it. And then was talking about kind of comparatives to the Lloyds and big dogs of the world from the 90s, 2000s.
See, this is the great thing about the Foxtel coverage this year. I have not gone near. I haven't heard BT's voice all season, and it's been amazing. Like, I don't know how I could ever go back, to be honest. Nathan O'Driscoll's injured, so this is more so who replaces him, do you think? Now, I've been looking at the Waffle scores, and Will Brodie was actually named as emergency.
He's been named emergency every week because they keep playing the late game, and I keep getting messages, is it finally time? Yeah. He's on the extended bench.
Well, he carved up the twos on the weekend as well. I think he had 100 points fantasy-wise, but it looked like he had a stack of the ball. Could he be the guy that comes in and runs on the wing? They got a few options. Aish could come back in.
Could happen again. I don't know. I think Will Brodie is done and dusted unless they really find a hole. The big question is Noddy officially missing? I haven't seen it. Ankle?
No, I don't know. Yeah, something like that. Or was his hamstring again? Hamstring, ankle? No, sorry. It was Jackson had the hamstring, so it must have been ankle.
I think it was ankle, and they were saying that they were umming and ahhing, but they wanted to be precautionary, so I don't know if there was an official timeline.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a question in its own right.
Yeah.
Look, I think Aish, if it was me, I'm probably bringing him in. I still think he's quite hard done by. I think he's such a talented player.
Yeah.
Erasmus missed out this week.
Yeah.
Do they potentially just look at shuffling the magnets again?
Yeah, that's fair, because I probably just overlooked him because he wasn't named in the Waffle because he wasn't there. So, yeah, maybe that's probably the most logical one to actually come back in. James Harms onto the Dogs, 103 points. He's just a player who's I don't know. Do you have much to say on him, or is he just kind of a guy who'll pop up here and there with James Harms? Or?
I just like that he's gone with the headband, like he's trying to fill the Bailey Smith void or something like that. He ties it up as well. Yeah, I've been seeing him start at the forward pocket. I see him sometimes sneak into the midfield. Obviously, the timeline's been pushed for Treloar and Bontempelli again. So I'd say for a short period of time, we should expect a bit of an uptick. I probably don't expect it long term, though. But he should be off your waivers, to say the very least, and same thing. When the availability's there around him, pick him. Yeah.
I think so. That's a pretty fair assessment. Oscar Baker, 84 points. What was his role in this game? I only saw the very end of it.
Oh, look, I think Oscar Baker probably, I would argue he's still not best 22. Yeah, okay. I think he's too fringe.
Yeah. Is he still that kind of wingman outside type?
Almost always.
Yeah.
That role changes a little bit game to game, but I still think we have better wingmen. Obviously, Sam Davidson's locked down one wing.
Yeah.
Bailey Williams missed. There's a few guys that the role, Harvey Gallagher as well was the sub. I just think there's a few changing things, and Oscar Baker
a few moving parts.
Moving parts, that's right. He's probably number 25, and then depending who's injured, you'll get games.
All right, he's got 84 points, but probably not best 22. You heard it here first. All right, let's get on to the listener questions. Got an email. I can't remember who it was from. Sorry, I don't know if they want me to dox them anyway, but usually when they email me because they don't want us to be seen on the socials and things, so maybe I'm doing the right thing by not mentioning their name. The question is Petrarca getting forward status? Need to know for the AFL format and keeper
Maybe it was
format.
DC, because DC doesn't want people to know he's got Petrarca in Classic as well.
Yeah, it could have been. So, looking at the CBAs, averaging 58% right now. So, even in like the weekend where he's playing more forward, he's still getting 50% CBAs. So, that makes it pretty hard. Like, he would be spending 20 to 25% on the bench, surely, 75, 80% time on ground. Very hard to see that happening just yet, but if it continues, then maybe. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a hard one because visually, in the forward line a lot, he kicked the first 2 goals of the game for Melbourne, albeit a quarter and a half apart, Melbourne factor.
Yeah.
I think he will at some point this year. I just wonder how that's going to break down over the next few weeks, and I think it will depend on the likes of Xavier Lindsay, who they were trying to throw in there, what their timelines are like, because they are thin. We've already talked about that.
Yeah.
I think he'll get it. I just don't know that he'll quite get it
All right, so that's interesting. He played 84% time on ground. So that means he probably did go close to 35% up forward. The only issue is so far, like for the seat, he had 81 round one, which is going to make it pretty hard to get back. But you're right. That might actually push him towards getting forward status later on in the year.
And because he's forward, he spends more time on the ground because he has the rest less.
Yeah, correct. So that could work. Yep, later on in the season, I don't mind that. The Draft Bible says, in what order do you see these players averaging by the end of the season? And he's got Soligo, Callahan, Durham, Hewitt.
Ooh.
I'm assuming that's Georgia, not Elijah.
we should get some clarity on this. I think I've got to have Finn on top. I think he continues to progress. He's still having some average games there, getting a bit of attention at times, but I think he's clearly the best, albeit Hewitt's got a nice head start. I think they're the top two for me. Soligo, so much competition in that Crows midfield. I think it's hard to know what's going to happen week to week, although I keep going back to the Traders show last year and Rory Laird coming out and saying Soligo was their number one guy, which threw us all in a bit of a whirlwind. But I'd probably say Callahan, Hewitt, Soligo and Durham. Just his accountability at times that he has to be for players just reduces the ceiling.
Like maybe from here on in, like Callahan's got a lot of work to do to catch up on some of these guys. It depends if that tag is going to run. I'm kind of with you on the same boat. I think Callahan, I wouldn't be surprised if Soligo overtakes Hewitt at some stage.
Just a gap though so far.
Yeah, I know. It was 112 versus 108, I think, so it's not too far.
108?
I think so.
Soligo, jeepers. Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Because
he was having a good start, but
had two big ones. Average 108 for Soligo, and then Hewitt is 112. So so that's why I reckon like Soligo's probably got that huge ceiling though as well. Like because he's the one that doesn't get like they're going to tag ranking every day of the week. Before that, they're going to put more attention into Dawson. Dawson does have his down weeks as well, and Soligo usually has an uptick then. So I don't know. I think Callahan, Soligo, then Hewitt, then Durham. I think it's probably for me, but we need to switch one around anyway. But yeah, Callahan's got a lot of work to do to catch up. That's for sure. But I think by the end of the season, he really asserts himself. Callahan does. At Major Van Bam, is Fletcher worth picking up given the defence position? Did Pickett get in midfield? I think we covered both of those in the podcast. But Fletcher, I do think is worth picking up if he gets a defender status, and Pickett did get some midfield time. So there's your questions answered there, Major Van Bam. At AFL Fantasy Qs, what do you see Trainer's ceiling to be as he progresses? I'd be lying if I said I watched a heap of Richmond this year.
I've watched a heap of Trainer. I haven't watched much of Richmond, but I've just been keeping an eye there.
I have not been watching their games, so to be honest, I probably couldn't pick him out of a lineup at this stage. But he's more of that taller hybrid kind of halfback flanker, isn't he?
Yeah, that's probably a good way to describe it. He seems to get links in chains sometimes, but not others. They do seem to look for him a fair bit, to be perfectly honest. So, I don't know. When we're talking ceiling, I'm not saying he's Jaden Short or anyone quite like that. But I think there's absolutely games. I mean, he was 68 at three-quarter time. I think he only had a 6-point last quarter.
Yeah.
I thought he was on track for a solid at mid-80s, 90s score, and I don't think that's unachievable. It's not going to be a weekly thing. Again, Richmond played well this week. They're going to see a lot of ball in their back line, but they're similar to West Coast. They're just not huge team points. So, look, I think he might be a 65 to 70 guy with a 90-odd ceiling. I don't really see him finding a way to tons.
Sweet. I was going to say, based on nothing but the role he plays, I'd say a 75 average kind of guy for most of his career. So, sweet. Glad we're on the same page. At Russ wants to know, is Doherty a sell high candidate? I think he is. Especially after that big score last week. He's only getting older. I don't think his role fluctuates so much. It's still on the wing, even though he scored well, just because he was pushing back into defence a bit more. And I think that's because Cowan was out. They needed someone else to go back. I don't know. I would sell high just given his age, really.
I probably agree. I guess I would just debate, are we selling higher? Like, have people got the value into him?
Yeah, well, if people are valuing him that high after last week, I would sell. I'd cash in on it.
I think that's fair. I guess I'd be questioning if someone's offering me Doc, I'm probably still basing it relatively low on injury history, age and role. But if someone's coming to you, absolutely. Yeah.
Or if for sell high is your might get a good draftee back from this year's draft or something like that, then maybe that's probably, that's not scoring well just right now, maybe not even playing right now, but has a good future potential in your dynasty ones. If that's your sell high, then that's probably something you could do.
I think so. Well. And again, depending where you're positioned for the year.
If you're rebuilding or whatever. Yeah. And he wants to know, is a buy low on Rivers or just leave him alone? I'd be buying low.
Yep, I'm pretty hot on Trent. I think at some point it's going to come good.
Yeah, maybe Petrarca leaves at the end of the year or something like that.
Yeah.
He's looking pretty frustrated at the moment. Maybe he goes straight into the midfield. Then maybe when Judd McVie comes back in the side, they can just free him up a bit more. And
I think either role, if he takes properly, he will score well in. It's just at the moment he's a little bit of everything. And again, we keep talking about it. I like Mr. Fix-Its for a lot of reasons and job security, but in Classic, if you're spending $800K on someone, or in the Rivers case, I think he probably went top 15 to 20 in defenders in a lot of drafts.
Definitely.
You'd be pretty disappointed at this stage.
Yeah.
He will come good, so buy
and
low.
Melbourne just need to get better as well, and he'll be better too, I feel. It's hard to be a good scorer in a team that can't win a game of football.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a little while till they do, potentially.
Yeah, correct. Poor Melbourne. But anyways, Jake, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast this week. Where can we find you? You're at Dunkley's Donuts, aren't you?
At Dunkley's Donuts.
On X.
On X, that's it. Of course, you can find our podcast at AFL Fantasy Hat Chat. And this week, you can find me at almost every game in Adelaide. Because gather around, it's Christmas.
Yeah, it's Christmas in Adelaide, definitely. I will be these are the games I'm going to. I'm going to Adelaide Geelong. I'm going to, who's playing Friday? Collingwood and Sydney.
Yep.
I'm going to North Melbourne Gold Coast in the Barossa.
Okay.
Then I'm going to Essendon Melbourne.
Nice.
And then Port Hawthorn. I think so that's 5.
Yeah, cool. I'm doing the Freo Richmond in the Barossa on the Sunday instead, and then I'm going to do West Coast Carlton.
I'm sure that was hard to find a ticket to.
Oh, yeah. I think they're the only ones games are still with tickets. Then I'm just going to stop down to Norwood for the Doggies Brisbane game.
Oh, yeah, sweet.
And then swing right back for Melbourne Essendon as well. So
should be a pretty sweet weekend.
Good. And then I think there's a few of us who are going to catch up at the Black Ball on Friday afternoon. I know Clubby Sport's going to be in there. Rob, our Talog King, for those that track that statistic, time laying on the ground. He is our number one. And we're just going to be in the beer garden there just for a few drinks and
sounds pretty good.
Catch up with some people.
All right, cool. Well, look for us around. Come say good day. I love when people come say good day, especially at gather around.
Last year, we just got to watch the Warn Dog get absolutely flooded by hundreds of people.
Maybe not that many, but I don't think that many people know who we are.
No, we just got to watch it. I think
we'll be fine, the one or two that do come say good day, I do appreciate it. 100%. So, if you're around, say good day. Anyways, get around us on at Keep League Pod on all the socials. Sign up to our YouTube channel. Make sure you're watching those and getting those plays up. If you want to support the podcast, please sign up as a member. There's a link in the description below. And I think that's about it. We'll talk to you next week. See you later.